Welcome back to our next segment. Lisa Martin here, talking next with a guest who is going to be discussing a very timely, highly relevant topic. Please welcome Milan Balinton, the Executive Director of the AACSA, that is the African American Community Service Agency. Milan, it's great to have you join us during the show.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. How are you?
Good. No complaints. We're very practicing social distancing here. I know you're downtown San Jose. I'm in San Jose as well. So glad that we could come together under SingleStore's auspices and talk about it. Such an important topic. But first of all, I'd love for you to share with the audience what the AACSA is, who you serve, and the services that you offer.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for asking me. The African American Community Service Agency was founded in 1978 to preserve the dignity and culture of a diverse African American community while servicing all in Santa Clara County. The organization has 6 pillars, which is education, economic development, health and wellness, social services, our family resource center, and racial and social justice. Our organization has signature programs such as the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Luncheon, our Juneteenth in the Park Festival, and we serve the low to moderate income, but anyone that comes to the doors of AACSA, the corner of 6th and Julian, can get services that they need. I've been the executive director for almost 10 years, and we have a team that is dedicated to the service of all people.
That's awesome. And I know that's something that's very near and dear to your heart, as well as to the folks at SingleStore. A couple years ago, let's kind of bring data into the mix here. A lot of companies talk about diversity and inclusion, a lot, probably all of them. But what SingleStore has done is something that really kind of caught my attention, working together with you. This is, let's leverage data to actually start identifying the communities and the services that they need. Talk to us about what you're doing and your ideas. So let's start leveraging data to help direct who needs what now.
Definitely. I mean, when we talk about data, the average person who comes to get service for us could probably care less about data. What it is a lot of companies, when we're trying to level up equity within communities that are Black and brown, is that we have to communicate with data with those who are in the tech industry, with those who are within foundations in the giving space, to better understand how to reach us as a nonprofit organization serving people. So we train ourselves to understand what are the numbers saying in order for us to know where to serve. Who are we serving? How many are we serving? And how much is actually needed? I think there are a lot of laws that hold companies accountable for making sure that they invest dollars into places and spaces that need these dollars. So we utilize it to tell the story, to also identify where our clientele are based and how we can best change the data numbers to reflect an increase based on our impact and our expected outcomes. So it's a language within a language, but it is also a tool that we must use as nonprofits, and including Black-led nonprofits, nonprofits of color, to better measure our work and show what we are doing here in this world.
So you mentioned, Milan, that you've been the executive director of AACSA for about 10 years now. In that time, you shared some very big numbers with me when we were prepping for this, and that is you've grown your staff by about 15x, from 1.5 to 15 people, but you've also massively grown the budget from what, maybe 10,000 to in the millions now. I'd love to know how you had the idea to, from a fundraising perspective, let's go to companies and get more companies behind what we're trying to do. Tell me about that strategy.
Definitely. Thinking back almost 10 years when I first had my first meeting with a representative from Intel, Rita Holiday. And she said, "What is your vision?" And I gave this massive vision of one day having 15 staff members, of having enough money to pay all of the bills and to be able to have robust programs and a recognizable organization that represents the Black community in the way of Black excellence, that is serving not only our community with passion, but anybody that comes to the doors. And so thinking back then, when it was like me staying at work for 16, 18, 20, sometimes hours, just trying to learn and understand, my ancestors have went through worse things than me. So if I have the opportunity to try to turn this ship around, what would that look like? And I kept speaking it. I kept saying in places and spaces that I'm sowing in love At the time when I accepted the job offer, I was a graduate student at Golden Gate University, and I had, loans to live off of, student loans and paying for school. And so I kept telling myself, stay with it. I had a circle of allies who encouraged me to keep going. And that led to me start, 4 staff members, 8 staff members, 10, as well as increasing our board and convincing people with the passion that I have for people. I'm not just an executive that sits in my office, but I come down to work with my team and let them see that I'm a part of the tapestry of the organization as well to best understand where they are. And so what that has done is they tell other people about the job. Like, you might want to come work where we're working at, because it is a environment of you can fail and still do well. You can develop under our wings and be able to increase. And with funders, it's always been about the lack of access, or I oftentimes will hear, we can't find Black people. And I'm like, well, who are you talking to? If you're talking to the African American Community Service Agency, we can identify those whom you may be looking for, and you just don't know where to find them, whether that be the historically Black fraternities and sororities, Black-led based organizations. There are over 21 Black churches in San Jose alone. So think about Santa Clara County as a market in their terms. Let AACSA, that has been a hub for the community for well over 40 years, introduce you to, as I like to say sometimes, the Wakanda of Silicon Valley, and tap into these resources that my community has to offer. So that has led into us getting the dollars from corporations and foundations, and them entrusting me as a leader to implement those dollars to make some changes here.
The Wakanda of Silicon Valley. I love that. And I also like the sign behind you that says, trust your crazy ideas. I can tell you
I
do
have a
that and look at all that's come from it. But I wanted to talk to you about specifically about, we're at SingleStore's event here, the need to create databases with companies like SingleStore that help influence the diversity and show the efficacy of the work being done by organizations like yours. Tell me your thoughts about that.
Oftentimes one of the things that we rack our brain and nonprofit around is, can we go to a single place to get one thing that reaches all things? Oftentimes some of the databases and softwares, our Excel sheets, can become tedious for staff members, and we thrive off of volunteers. And oftentimes volunteers are, a dime a dozen, because COVID-19 also is impacting how volunteers show up at nonprofits. And if you don't have the time to go through spreadsheets and find what a volunteer has invested their time in and a staff member, we need resources that would allow us to read data in a flash of a second, to be able to pull it up and it identify how many hours was expensed by a volunteer, and how does that impact the organization, how many donors have donated within that day. It is one of the tools that we know we need to survive as a nonprofit, and also speak and communicate with businesses throughout the technology world, as well as with foundations. So it would be a godsend to a nonprofit to have one single source place to go to as a market for us, rather than having 4 to 5 different tools that we have to use to even speak a language that nonprofits have to speak to survive.
The simplification is absolutely critical. I do want to share one thing with you before we wrap. Earlier today in SingleStore CEO Raj Verma's keynote, he mentioned this statement, and I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was so relevant and potent. Fast data is a civil right, that it shouldn't just be the big corporations that have the infrastructure to be able to get their hands on this data, ingest it, analyze it in real time, and make decisions that affect people now. Tell me your thoughts on this statement. Fast data is a civil right.
Ooh, it's a powerful statement. And I think in 2020, when we talk about where technology is, and we still are having these discussions about the divide, the digital divide, and how when companies are asking for data and information in order to even fund an organization, Black-led organizations or organizations that have an emphasis in Black and Brown communities, need data and information to even apply or prove that they have a need for the funding to even serve the public. And so to hear that, it definitely is a spot on, a quotable, might I add. I will have to put that on my Twitter feed this evening, because the civil right behind it is that we're able to speak to the numbers, that we are able to share this information, we are able to have access to equity and equality and all these things that what data does. And so what he said is very profound, and I commend him for taking his platform to speak on it and to also act on it.
Well, Milan, we commend you for all the work that you're doing, and we thank you for participating in the event and sharing your insights. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me, and remain safe, stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands, and wear your mask.
Everything he said. All right, guys, we'll be right back with our next segment.